Discover the incredible letter that transformatively changed a CEO's Christmas loneliness forever. As snowflakes began to blanket the bustling Midwestern town, Robert Hayes leaned back in his luxurious chair, gazing unseeing at the festive lights twinkling beyond the glass walls of his high-rise office. Once buoyant and brimming with visions of family gatherings, laughter, and warmth, Christmas had morphed into a stark reminder of his solitude. Amid the corporate successes and accolades, a chilling emptiness gripped him, tightening its hold as the holiday approached. Had he traded his soul for an empire? Robert's pulse quickened as he thumbed through the endless reports covering his desk, while laughter wafted through the open windows, voices of families enjoying the season resonating off the polished floors. Glancing at his calendar, it vibrated with deadlines and profit charts, a reminder that wealth had come at a steep cost. His relationships. Could this truly be the pinnacle of success? Each tick of the clock echoed with the realization that those around him reveled in a joy he had forsaken. The ache of isolation resonated within him like a persistent whisper, growing louder under the weight of his ambition. With every marketing meeting and board decision, he felt himself more ensnared in a web of expectations, a trap woven from ambition while losing sight of what truly mattered. But a jarring reminder lay dormant in the recesses of his past, waiting for a moment to surface. One dreary evening, as Robert sifted through boxes in his attic, he stumbled across a long-forgotten letter penned by his mentor, a man whose guidance had been invaluable in the early days of his career. The letter, yellowed and fragile with age, beckoned to him. As he unfolded the paper, a warmth flooded through him. His mentor's writing had a way of igniting hope. The words, filled with dreams of creating a space for underprivileged kids to explore technology, rang true amidst Robert's inner turmoil. Each line echoed with a familiar voice, urging him to reflect on values overshadowed by success. For the first time in years, Robert felt a flicker of something beyond the sterile confines of spreadsheets and targets, a glimmer of purpose. But as he mulled over the implications of reviving this vision, his heart raced with trepidation. Should he step away from pursuing a lucrative contract that promised to secure his company's future, or delve into an endeavor deeply rooted in personal values, risking it all? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. The tension coiled tighter within him, pulsating with unresolved choices. With each passing day, the decisions loomed over him like gathering storm clouds, threatening to unleash their wrath. Balancing corporate expectations against the call of his mentor's legacy magnified his anguish, straining his interactions with those he loved. Their faces faded into blurred reflections of conversations marked by his growing frustration. He could almost feel their disappointment, a crushing weight on his chest. Standing at the precipice of an irrevocable decision, Robert's eyes fell on the high-stakes contract. A paper that had once signified achievement now felt like a shackle. His mentor's voice whispered through his memories. What will matter most on the other side of success? As the snow began to drift down outside his glass fortress, Robert knew he was on the brink of something transformative. Yet the choice lay heavy, threatening to drown him in doubt and regret as the final echoes of the season's laughter faded into silence. The crisp air of December chilled Robert as he exited his office, the weight of the world pressing down with every step. He moved through the lobby, his mind clouded with thoughts of his mentor's letter. The idea of stepping back from guaranteed financial security felt alien yet refreshing.
Was success truly about numbers and quarterly reports, or was there something deeper, a purpose that animated his existence, something he had long since allowed to slip away? Days passed as Robert wrestled with his decision, each moment punctuated by fleeting images of children laughing and learning. He began to sketch ideas, jotting down plans for a community center that would provide technological exposure to those who could not otherwise access it. His heart raced each time his pen touched the paper, as though the very act of creation stirred something dormant within him. Yet every evening ended with the gnawing fear of abandoning the lucrative contract that lingered, the deal that everyone assumed was a sure thing. He stood at the intersection of ambition and altruism, paralyzed by uncertainty. Each morning he awoke to the alarm's harsh ring, an echo of the corporate world he had so meticulously built. But beneath it all, a resolve flickered, demanding attention, a whisper that urged him to take a leap of faith. The corporate ladder he ascended had been rung after rung, a dizzying climb to the top. Yet now it felt like an ascent to nowhere. A few days later, after yet another sleepless night of internal turmoil, Robert decided to meet with a few colleagues at the coffee shop. As they convened, chatter about seamlessly rising profits filled the air, conversations flowing easily. "Robert, you've got to see this new analysis on the market trends," Greg exclaimed, slapping a report on the table. "If we land this next contract, our bonus structures will skyrocket." Robert forced a smile, but inside, a sense of alienation swelled. He felt like a stranger in a world he had meticulously crafted. "I've been thinking about focusing my
"Energies elsewhere," he responded, surprising even himself. "Elsewhere? You mean beyond this?" Greg leaned in, eyebrow raised as his tone turned serious. "You can't step back now, not when you're this close." The words struck Robert like a cold wind slicing through the warmth of the cafe. "But what about making a difference?" he shot back, unsure where the conviction emerged. "What's that supposed to mean?" Greg's incredulous expression mirrored the skepticism of others in the meeting. Robert's heart raced as his voice rose. "It means I'm questioning what success truly looks like. I don't want to sit at the top of a tower built on others' sacrifices, or build a legacy devoid of meaning." Seconds of silence passed, offering a moment of vulnerability amidst a sea of competitive ambition. As he left the coffee shop, a mixture of exhilaration and dread coursed through him. The confrontation had laid bare the gulf growing between his values and those of the corporate world. Could he truly step into the unknown, embracing the risk of pursuing his vision? As he walked through the hazy glow of street lamps, a thought crystallized in his mind. Perhaps the first step lay in addressing his own fears. With renewed determination, Robert headed home, intent on crafting a proposal for his vision. He understood the journey ahead would be fraught with challenges, but at that moment, restless in its pursuit, a profound realization struck him. The time had come to choose authenticity over acceptance. And as the night drew in, beneath the weight of 1,000 uncertainties, Robert resolved that he would face the very heart of his contemporary existence, the impending contract negotiation. But would his choice truly ignite change, or would it seal his fate in a world predicated on profitability? As dawn broke the next day, Robert's resolve felt both intoxicating and terrifying. His apartment, usually a cocoon of comfort, now seemed confining as he paced the floor. Each step resonated like a countdown to a moment that could redefine everything. He had decided to articulate his vision, yet the prospect of presenting a radical idea plagued him. Would his colleagues still see him as one of them, or had he crossed an invisible line, venturing into uncharted territory? The morning air was brisk, invigorating his thoughts as he made his way to the office. Robert could feel the tangible weight of the proposal tucked away in his laptop bag, a mix of ambition and fear transforming into a knot in his stomach. He had spent countless hours scrutinizing every detail, threading together facts and insights to support his dream, a space equipped with technological tools for underprivileged children. Arriving at the office, he was greeted by the same chirpy banter about an impending project launch.
The vibrant buzz of his coworkers faded into the background as he positioned himself at his desk. He logged in and opened the document, the blinking cursor a steadfast reminder of the critical moment resting on his shoulders. As he
Typed the opening lines, his fingers trembled. He envisioned standing in front of his colleagues, their eyes weighing his words. What if they scoffed? What if they laughed? Yet then he recalled the children, their bright eyes scanning their bleak surroundings, eager for an opportunity. This was bigger than him. It was about the impact he could create. Robert paused, reflecting on the risks he was about to undertake. The expected path flaunted a financial plunge, yet his heart beckoned him to transcend this scorecard mentality. In an act of defiance against his inner critic, he pressed on, pouring his passion and purpose into each paragraph. Just as he was about to end his draft, a message pinged on his screen. It was Greg. "Ready for the big meeting today? Remember what's at stake." The urgency of Greg's text sent a shiver down his spine. Today was also the day of the contract negotiation that could solidify his status in the company. "Focus, Robert," he chided himself. He took a deep breath and continued refining his proposal, knowing he would have to choose between stability and his aspirations. The clock on the wall ticked audibly, mocking his hesitation. As lunchtime approached, Robert glanced outside the window, where the bustling streets pulsed with life. People moving purposefully seeking their own success. It brought him clarity. He understood that the contract, while momentous, was but one avenue of achievement. His vision, however, was a significant shift in his professional existence. It was daring to strive for something more. Finally, he sent the draft to himself, a digital promise of his intentions. He would share it after the negotiation, come what may. Steeling himself, he plastered on a smile and joined the throng heading to the conference room, each step echoing with unspoken courage. The meeting unfolded as expected: sharp discussions, calculated projections, and the usual jargon about market shifts. Robert's heart raced as he battled the urge to zone out, to envision the other future, the one where he stood courageous in his vision. He clung to his truth, even as his mind suffocated under the pressure of numbers. The moment of truth came when the company board opened the floor for final thoughts. Robert felt his body tense. The decision hung heavy, boiling within him. He could either advocate for the lucrative deal or erupt with his vision, risking everything he had built. In that instant, a voice within him roared to be heard. He knew this dilemma was far deeper. It wasn't just about career paths. It was about defining who he truly was and what legacy he intended to carve. Would he summon the courage to articulate his dream or retreat back to the safety of what was expected? All eyes shifted towards him, anticipation thick in the air. But before he could respond, Greg's warning from earlier echoed in his mind. What's at stake? The weight of both paths pressed on him, collapsing the distinction between right and wrong. Would he to ignite change, or would he settle for the familiar chains of corporate success? The decision loomed before him like a fork in the road. In that charged silence, Robert felt as if the air had thickened around him. A wave of uncertainty crashed over him, each second stretching into infinity. Should he shatter the expectations surrounding him, or slip back into conformity? "Robert," one of his colleagues prompted, breaking through his mental haze. The board members were still expectantly gazing at him. His heart pounded, drowning out reason, but it was not fear that drove him now. It was determination. The moment he had envisioned countless times had crystallized into reality. He cleared his throat, mentally gripping his proposal like a lifeline. "I believe there's something more we can strive for," he began, his voice steadier than he felt. Recognition flickered in the room. Surprise, followed by a charged curiosity that electrified the air. As he laid out his vision, the words flowed with surprising ease. The socio-economic disparity, the urgency of his mission, and how they could leverage their expertise to create something transformative. He spoke of the underprivileged kids he had imagined in these spaces. While the meeting room absorbed his ideas, Robert felt parts of himself emerging from the shadows. Ambition, empathy, and resilience entwining to create a new self-definition. The more he spoke, the more at home he felt in his own skin, as if he had finally plugged into a source of energy that had always existed within him. As he concluded, the silence was deafening, a sharp contrast to the wave of adrenaline washing over him. The reactions were varied. Some faces wore skeptical frowns, while others glowed with intrigue. He hadn't expected unanimous approval, but he had sparked a conversation, a catalyst igniting discussions about a world beyond profit margins. "I see potential in this, Robert," the CEO finally commented, weighing his words carefully. "It's unconventional, but it addresses a real need." Relief washed over him, accompanied by an enthusiasm he had never foreseen from such a formal setting. Questions bounced back toward him, each one an opportunity. He navigated through them, finding momentum. The meeting shifted toward brainstorming and refining the proposal. It was no longer just his vision, but a shared possibility. As the meeting adjourned, thoughts bombarded him. Where would they go from here? Would he really have the chance to make a difference? Each step he took as he exited the room felt lighter. He had crossed a threshold. He had voiced the future he believed in. Yet when he returned to his desk, the buzz of excitement gave way to doubt. His mind replayed the moments when colleagues had blankly stared or frowned, questioning the feasibility of his dream. Greg's earlier warning loomed once more. Was he inviting criticism, staking his career on an uncertain path? Doubt whispered in his ear, challenging the conviction he felt just moments before. Nothing was guaranteed. This could easily backfire. "Hey, great presentation!" Greg approached, a supportive smile breaking through Robert's apprehensions. "I can't believe you actually did it. You really laid it all out there." Robert nodded, gratitude mixed with lingering uncertainty. Paid respect was fleeting when faced with the unknown. But just as quickly as the fleeting shadows of doubt crept in, Robert's resolve began to firm again. He had planted seeds of innovation in fertile ground. As he sat down to assess next steps, he couldn't shake the feeling that his real journey was just beginning. Every action he took now bore deeper implications. He was not just navigating corporate waters, he was challenging norms, and the waves of change had already started to ripple. Suddenly, a notification pinged on his screen. An email from the CEO. "Let's have a follow-up discussion about your proposal. I believe we can explore this together." A mixture of exhilaration and fear ignited within him. Was this the actual beginning of something transformative? What would come next when the implications of his daring idea collided with reality? As he geared up for the next chapter of this venture, he couldn't help but wonder, was he ready to embrace both failure and success as two necessary halves of his unfolding journey? The meeting was set for the next day, and Robert spent the hours leading up to it oscillating between excitement and dread. He was determined to show the CEO that his vision had not only merit, but potential for profit. However, surrounded by an enveloping sense of anticipation was a nagging question that clawed at his confidence. What if he was perceived as just another idealist? Had he oversold a dream that was destined to implode? As he sat in his dimly lit office that evening, Robert allowed himself to reflect deeply. His career had revolved around structured ideas, polished presentations, and established approaches to business. Yet here he was, ready to paddle into uncharted waters. He glanced at the scattered notes on his desk, each filled with insights and statistics backing his proposal. Was he truly prepared to make such a bold pivot? He inhaled deeply and jotted down the words that clung to his mind. Vision, impact, community. The next day arrived with a heavy mix of nerves and determination. When he entered the plush conference room, its sleek modernity felt intimidating, but Robert straightened his shoulders. He was driven by a desire not just to impress, but to instigate real change.
The CEO entered the room with an air of authority, his presence commanding attention. Robert met his gaze and for a fleeting moment felt a flicker of kinship. Perhaps they both were chasing after a notion that transcended the ordinary pursuit of profit. "Robert," the CEO began, leaning against the polished table, his arms crossed, "I was intrigued by your presentation. Tell me, what made you so passionate about this project?" The question, far from a simple inquiry, was a challenge. Robert paused, heart racing. He had never dared to expose so much of himself in
his professional life, but this was a moment to stake his claim. For me, it comes down to a responsibility we have, as a company, as individuals. We can either amplify the inequalities or stand against them. Growing up, I saw how opportunities slipped away from those who needed them most. I want to be part of a change that redefines opportunities. The CEO studied him, his brow knitting in curiosity. The tension in Robert's chest eased just slightly as he continued feeling his way through this conversation. With every word he uttered, the shadow of doubt receded, replaced by a burgeoning sense of purpose. He described the vital role the company could play, not just in terms of corporate social responsibility, but in embedding innovation within underserved communities. As the discussion progressed, the CEO leaned in closer, engaging with Robert's ideas. They dissected potential obstacles while weighing the implications, both financial and moral. Every concern Robert addressed was a small victory, but internal caution reminded him of the harsh reality outside the confines of this conversation. Still, with each exchanged word, a bond formed, an acknowledgement of mutual respect. Yet, lurking beneath the exchange was an unforeseen complexity, a willingness to align personal beliefs with professional ambition. Finally, the CEO leaned back, an intrigued smile breaking his previously stern demeanor. "You've painted a compelling vision. Let's analyze how we can navigate through objections while maximizing impact and profit," he said, weaving business and altruism into the tapestry of their new dialogue. As the meeting concluded, Robert left the room buoyed by encouragement and propelled by a newfound clarity. He realized that he was not simply on the verge of altering a premium service, he was learning to defend a belief, and that made all the difference. Walking back to his desk, a nagging thought returned. The looming skepticism of colleagues, the risk of failure, and the enormity of potential consequences brushed through his mind. At that moment, Robert resolved to own every part of this journey, success or failure. But an unexpected message pinged in his inbox. It was an email from Greg, reading simply, "Things are shifting, aren't they, Robert? But you need to know both opportunities and threats are coming." An edge of anxiety pierced through his confidence, making him wonder how the cheerful atmosphere of ambition could twist into a battleground. What challenges now awaited him, lurking just beyond the horizon of his daring vision? Robert sat at his desk, staring at the email from Greg as though it were a loaded gun. Each word weighed heavily, the promise of opportunity intertwining with a palpable sense of threat. The CEO had shown interest, yes, but now Robert felt like a diver staring into murky waters. What lay below? Could it be danger lurking, ready to drag him under? Determination surged as he pushed the email aside. His vision remained clear. He had to take the leap. He couldn't retreat to the safety of conventional roles. As he reconnected with the energy from the
Meeting, a sense of urgency bloomed within him. He had to transform his ideas into actionable plans and prepare for the potential fallout. Reaching for his notebook, Robert drafted a strategy. Next steps formed in his mind, assembling a team to help with this initiative, conducting research on potential partnerships, and identifying stakeholders who would share the vision. Each component felt like a rung on a ladder, pulling him up towards something bigger than himself. He made some initial calls to colleagues who he believed had the capability to contribute. Sarah from marketing had a knack for storytelling that could amplify their mission, while David in finance could provide the numbers Robert needed to convince skeptics. Their collaboration could spark the fire of this initiative, igniting processes that would breathe life into ideas. Yet a knot of uncertainty twisted in his stomach.
Did he have enough credibility? Would they see him as a leader worth following, or merely as a dreamer lost in his ambitions? Determined to project confidence, he gathered the team for a brainstorming session. As they settled in the small conference room, he noticed expressions ranging from skepticism to cautious optimism among them. Robert felt the weight of their expectations mixed with his own growing resolve. "I know this might seem ambitious," he began, his voice steady, "but I believe we have a unique opportunity to redefine our approach to corporate responsibility and, in the process, create sustainable growth." He illustrated his vision through vivid examples, the possibilities unfolding like a film reel. As Robert spoke, he could feel a shift in the room. Eyes brightened and shoulders relaxed. Sarah leaned forward, feeding off his energy, ready to capture the narrative he was weaving. Excitement bubbled as ideas flowed, transforming uncertainty into proactive discussions. But just as this hope swelled, a familiar voice cut through the atmosphere. Greg, his trusted yet acerbic colleague. His presence had always been a mixed blessing, bringing both astute insights and sharp critiques. "I have to question this whole approach, Robert," Greg said, arms crossed, his trademark skepticism lighting the room like a thundercloud. "You're banking on hope. What makes you think this will hold up against the realities of our competitive landscape?" His words struck hard, sending an icy chill through Robert's mind. He opened his mouth to respond, but hesitated. Defending his vision against doubt was becoming second nature, yet this felt different. He sensed the stakes were higher now. Taking a deep breath, Robert decided to answer not just with data, but personal conviction. "Because I believe that the greatest enterprises aren't built solely on profit, they're built on values. If we show authenticity and take bold moves, I know we can attract consumers in ways we haven't even considered." Disappointment flickered across Greg's expression. "Values don't pay the bills, Robert. Ensure you're ready for whatever pushback awaits. You need to prepare for the worst, not the ideal." With that, he turned on his heel and left.
Unsettling fog in his wake. Robert felt a mixture of frustration and clarity wash over him. As they resumed brainstorming, he couldn't shake off Greg's words, echoing like an alarm bell. The reality was clear. If he wanted this dream to materialize without fracture, he had to prepare a strong defense against the inevitable criticism. As the meeting ended and the team dispersed, Robert sat with unresolved tension nagging at his focus. Suddenly, an idea sparked. An opportunity he hadn't fully explored yet could provide not just a safety net, but a springboard. He needed to reach out to external analysts who recognized emerging business trends. They could offer insights, possibilities, and strategies that would shield his ambitions from any threats. Determined, Robert opened his laptop and began drafting outreach messages, eager to secure support that would bolster his vision. With urgency fueling his every keystroke, a new question took form. Could he rally enough backing to outmaneuver a potentially hostile landscape? The answer seemed to battle against the backdrop of his newfound resolve. He felt the weight of his career and his ideals in this pivotal moment. The truth simmered beneath the surface. Nothing worthwhile came without risk, but the price of safety was now too high. Thus, his journey surged forward, but unbeknownst to him, a shift was occurring within the company that he had yet to grasp fully. It was time to wield his ambition and navigate the tumult ahead. But as he pressed send, anticipation gripped him anew. What unforeseen challenges awaited, and could he truly navigate this tumultuous path with both innovation and integrity? The following days unfolded with a frenetic pace, but beneath his seemingly calm exterior, Robert grappled with mounting pressure. Each notification on his phone felt like an electrifying spark, hinting at the potential responses from analysts excited or skeptical about his vision. He woke earlier, immersed himself in research, and set aside moments to refine his pitch, ensuring it radiated clarity and conviction. As responses from analysts trickled in, so did an undercurrent of anxiety.
He had crafted the initial outreach with fervor, yet doubts began to gnaw at him. Were these insights enough to elevate his concept, bolstering his credibility? Each reply he received felt like an appraisal of not only his project, but also his capabilities as a leader. He studied the feedback meticulously, translating their suggestions into concrete actions. One evening, Robert found himself staring into the flickering light of his laptop. The dim glow illuminated his furrowed brow. He recalled the fear that danced in the back of his mind, a familiar specter of self-doubt that had haunted him throughout his career. Shifting his focus, he recalled his initial passion that set everything in motion. Drawing in a deep breath, he reminded himself that ambition had to be tethered with resilience. He grabbed his notebook and painstaking outlined the potential risks Greg had raised. What could go wrong? And more importantly, how could he address these issues?
Before they escalated, he listed objections: skepticism from upper management, financial repercussions if the project didn't yield results, and the potential backlash from the market. Each concern felt daunting, but as he wrote, clarity began to surface. With every word, Robert turned fear into strategy, identifying counterpoints and corresponding solutions. This exercise not only prepared him to defend his vision, but also reignited his confidence. Burning the midnight oil became routine, yet the late nights sharpened his resolve. He was more than just ambitious, he was becoming astute, channeling his emotional energy into pragmatic frameworks. Implementing feedback from the analysts, he began developing a presentation that synthesized optimism with empirical data. On the day of the presentation, the conference room felt electric, its very air charged with anticipation. Colleagues filtered in, bearing a mixture of curiosity and skepticism. Robert took a deep breath. As he began, he invited them into his vision with compelling stories and bright visuals. Imagine a company where our values aren't spoken about but actively demonstrated, he asserted, contrasting it with the typical profit-centered narrative. Merging data with passion, he spoke not just about projections, but the resonating shift he envisioned, a bridge connecting ideals with execution. Midway through, he noticed Greg's arms were still crossed, neon skepticism radiating from him like a shield. But Robert pressed on, bolstered now by the foundation of his arguments. He pivoted his focus back to the benefits that could be harnessed. Empathizing with consumer needs defines market trends. We cannot hope to succeed unless we connect on a personal level. At the tail end of the presentation, Robert posed a challenge to the room. What if they could turn aspiration into tangible impact? He underscored the possibility of standing at the forefront of an industry shift where integrity spoke louder than profits. Nervous energy thrummed beneath the surface as he finished, leaving an open floor for discussion. The weight of silence hung heavily as colleagues deliberated. Questions emerged, tumbling forward in waves. Some concerns echoed Greg's initial sentiment, while others sparked with intrigue. As the dialogue unfolded, Robert observed the collective transformation. Barren skepticism thawed into constructive criticism. To his surprise, his ideas had morphed from dreamlike ambition to relatable shifts. With the meeting drawing to a close, Greg broke the silence. "It's not the worst I've heard, Robert," he said, a hint of a smile creeping in. The subtle shift in tone marked a breakthrough in Robert's perception of himself, catalyzing a transition from uncertainty to recognition. But as they wrapped, a new voice emerged. The head of finance leaned forward, casting an unexpected shadow over the now-found optimism. "You're ambitious, Robert, but can this really be achieved without disrupting our current operations?" The question hung in the air, potent and layered, demanding not only a strategic answer, but also a reflection of Robert's courage. How could he assure them while acknowledging their fears? The moment had arrived. His true test of leadership awaited. Defend not just the initiative, but all he had come to embody.
Would he rise to the occasion, addressing not only corporate concerns but the deeper need for growth? The path was fraught with complexity, and all eyes were on him, sensing not only the potential for success, but also the risks of failure. Within him, the fire ignited once more. Now the real challenge lay ahead, and Robert understood. This journey was only beginning. How would he navigate the turbulent waters of corporate expectation and personal resolve? The room's tension clung to Robert like a weight, each second stretching into an eternity. The head of finance's voice had carved a path through the veils of newfound confidence he had been cultivating. Beneath the pressure of expectation lay his deepest worries. Could he truly pull off this transformation without rocking the boat too heavily? His heart raced as he quickly processed his next move, knowing the momentum of this moment could catapult his proposal into fruition or derail it entirely. Before he could speak, his mind raced with the implications of his response. Would they view him as a visionary or just a naive idealist grasping at straws? "I appreciate that concern," Robert started, the heat in his cheeks contrasting his outward composure. He took a moment, deliberately choosing his words, seeking a balance of confidence and humility. Disruption isn't inherently chaos. It can be a catalyst for reinvention. He felt the weight shift as he spoke, his voice steadier with each word. What if we approached change strategically, ensuring that our current operations remain stable while we introduce incremental shifts? His gaze swept across the room, seeking nods of understanding as he continued. It's not about change for the sake of it, but about aligning our existing strengths with our aspirations. There was a flicker of interest from Greg, who looked slightly less skeptical. Robert pressed on, elaborating on how nuanced adaptations could be framed within their current practices. By leveraging our data, we can identify pain points that need addressing. In doing so, we can curate a transition that feels organic rather than forced. As he expressed this, a wave of clarity washed over him. Robert had not intervened in the dialogue cart before horse. He had threaded their existing ethos into a vision of modernity. The shift from ambition to pragmatic strategy galvanized him. "What we need," he declared, "is a collaborative task force to address these transitions. This isn't just my vision, it's ours. If we work together, we can ensure that no one feels left behind." The energy in the room began to change. Conversations erupted in fragments, and colleagues leaned forward, some jotting notes, others exchanging glances of acknowledgement. The paranoia of failure was understood, but juxtaposed against a collective yearning for forward momentum. Robert sensed an opening, and he seized it. Let's not frame this as a gamble, but rather an opportunity for every individual in this room to assert their capabilities, challenge the status quo, and create a legacy worth celebrating. A legacy that, instead of erasing what came before, honors our foundation while pointing us toward a more resilient and relevant future. His assertion echoed in the still air, and for a moment the air hung thick with possibility. As the discussions progressed, Robert reflected on how he was evolving, not just as a leader pushing an agenda, but as someone who could galvanize a team toward a shared vision. Yet buried beneath the excitement was a twinge of apprehension. Had he truly convinced them? Would they rally behind this initiative? Or would the very fears he aimed to alleviate still linger silently beneath their spirited discussions? That question loomed, heavy with potential, reminding him that every advance forward came with its risks. During a lull in the conversation, he became acutely aware that the work had just begun. Would he be equipped to sustain this newfound dialogue? Could he mold ideas into comprehensive plans to quell lingering doubts? The reflection prompted a flicker of determination within him. This was his moment to embrace not only the complexities of leadership, but to dig deeper into his potential. What lay ahead was a path not just paved with opportunity, but also laden with uncertainty and challenge, an intricate dance requiring continual vigilance and adaptability. As the meeting drew to a close, Robert resolved to take note of this invigorating momentum. He would schedule follow-up discussions, crafting agendas that highlighted individual contributions and highlighted areas for growth. But more importantly, Robert felt a persistent urge to actively engage with the team in real-time feedback. Were they truly aligned in their objectives, or was there unspoken trepidation that posed a threat to the journey ahead? The atmosphere in the room buzzed with an invigorating sense of potential, but in his gut he felt the weight of a new question creeping in. What sacrifices would he need to make to protect the integrity of this initiative? And even as the future shimmered with promise, Robert knew the complexities of his journey had only begun, with trials yet to emerge on the horizon, a true test where determination and strategy would play a pivotal role. The following morning, Robert awoke engulfed in a sense of urgency. The promise his proposal had sparked felt fragile, like the most delicate piece of glass teetering on the edge of a table. He had set the course toward a transformation, but now he faced the daunting task of maintaining that momentum. As he brewed his morning coffee, Robert rifled through the previous day's notes. The discussions had revealed fresh ideas and potential collaborators, yet he sensed an underlying hesitation among his colleagues. What had started as a collaborative spirit felt precariously close to consensus paralysis. He knew that maintaining engagement was crucial, otherwise it would not be long before his initiative reverted back into the shadows of half-hearted attempts. He took a seat at his desk, flipping his notepad over and drafting an email. Schedule a series of intimate team meetings. These would serve not just as check-ins, but as breathing rooms where he could draw out unvoiced concerns. He believed addressing fears head-on was essential, yet he felt a pang of uncertainty. Was he ready to facilitate such candid dialogues? The clock ticked as he agonized over each word, conscious of the weight his invitation bore. He needed to strike a tone that conveyed both approachability and authority. After multiple drafts, he settled on a straightforward message, inviting everyone to share their thoughts freely, emphasizing that vulnerability was not a sign of weakness, but of strength in any team dynamic. With the email dispatched, Robert turned to his calendar and began plotting potential dates for the meetings. Each hour spent scheduling felt like a step forward, yet the doubt harbored in his gut refused to subside. Was he merely postponing the inevitable shattering of this fragile consensus? The day unfolded with its usual cadence of emails and calls, yet Robert felt restless. He decided to take a walk around the office, intentionally steering his course toward familiar faces. He paused by the break room, where a small group of colleagues huddled around a coffee table. Engaging them in casual conversation, he was struck by the differences in their reactions to change. Some were enthusiastic, inspired by the potential shift, while others appeared guarded, still clinging to the security of the existing framework. One of the more seasoned employees, Karen, shared her apprehension about the potential chaos and adaptation. Her concerns struck a nerve. Robert understood that while positivity could spark motivation, it was the acknowledgement of fear that could bind a team together. As he listened, he recognized an opportunity. He needed to create an environment where honesty reigned. Relying solely on encouragement might lead to complacency. Clear communication had to become a cornerstone of his leadership style. He returned to his office, pouring a cup of coffee and contemplating his next steps. How could he ensure everyone felt invested in this vision? What proactive measures could he take to cultivate a culture of transparency? The ideas began to swirl before him, but one stood out. He would harness storytelling. By framing the company's future in a narrative that included each individual's role within it, he could transcend the typical barriers to change. Over the next few days, Robert meticulously crafted an engaging presentation to launch during his team meetings. He titled it, "Our Story, Our Future." In it, he aimed to articulate not only the strategic advantages of their proposed changes, but also the personal stake each member had in the evolution of their work environment. It was now or never. As he practiced his delivery, a flicker of excitement began to overshadow his initial trepidation. Robert felt a renewed purpose reverberating in his chest. But amidst the electrical charge of renewed hope, a new thought confronted him. Would his vision resonate, or would it invite resistance cloaked in indifference? The meetings would be a true test, as he would now need to execute his plan while confronting potential skepticism. The reality of his journey loomed large, and the stakes were higher than ever. As the first meeting drew near, he braced himself for the reactions that awaited him. Could he possibly withstand the pressure if he faced doubt not just from his colleagues, but from himself? He understood that this was his moment to rise. The time had come to face the real challenges, and he felt the rush of adrenaline pushing him forward into the unknown. As the conference room buzzed with hushed anticipation, Robert stood at the helm, ready to guide his colleagues through his envisioned future. Each day had converged toward this very moment, a culmination of earnest efforts, passionate beliefs, and a newfound clarity about his purpose. "Thank you all for joining me," he began, a wave of adrenaline coursing through him. "Today, I want to share not just my vision, but a narrative that binds us together as a team." He discerned curiosity interspersed with skepticism in the faces before him, reminding him that this would be no easy task. Diving into his presentation, Robert recounted the stories of individuals turned obstacles into opportunities. He highlighted how each team member's talents could flourish in a new environment, cultivating creativity and harnessing their unique skills to bleed into the fabric of corporate responsibility. He saw sparks of intrigue as he elaborated on the initiative's potential impact. Imagine a technology space where we guide underserved children toward career paths they've never before envisioned. He paused, drawing in the silence. This isn't just charity, it's a chance to innovate while solidifying our brand's core values. Every meticulous presentation detail resonated within him, and as he spoke, underlying apprehensions subsided, replaced by a simmering hope. This wasn't merely an idea. It was the embodiment of principles he held dear. Alongside the excitement was a flutter of fear. What if they remained unconvinced? What if Greg's earlier doubts echoed louder now, causing a setback? However, Robert felt strong. He was armed with passion and purpose. Streaked with personal anecdotes and future possibilities, he articulated opportunities. How they'd break into new markets, garner widespread support, and their collective journey to leap into uncharted territories for the good of society. Ultimately, the question isn't what profit margins we can generate, but how can we strengthen communities while ensuring a holistic return on investment? As he concluded, he experienced an invigorating sense of urgency. He had sparked a dialogue that fused personal and collective aspirations into a future they could shape. As he finished, the air was thick with contemplation. Colleagues exchanged glances, intrigued murmurs replacing skepticism. The moment felt electric, as if Robert had ignited a dormant potential within the group. Then Greg spoke, his trademark skepticism tempered by a newfound curiosity. "It's ambitious, Robert, but it's also necessary to ensure we align this with our financial goals. We can't lose sight of what drives us to begin with." Robert seized the challenge. "Absolutely, Greg. In fact, this initiative opens doors to market expansion. It will resonate with consumers looking for brands that affirm their values." The discussion amplified, bouncing off Robert's conviction and the evolving excitement in the room. A collaborative spirit began to flourish, and Robert realized he was no longer a lone crusader. They were charting this course collaboratively. The tapestry of their team began weaving a shared future. Over the next few weeks, discussions transformed into actionable items. Robert facilitated brainstorming sessions, which burgeoned productive debates about potential partnerships, funding mechanisms, and community outreach. The instilled sense of shared ownership liberated every team member from the choke of skepticism they previously held. One afternoon, as they finalized plans for their first outreach program, Robert's CEO summoned him to discuss financial projections and strategize the approach. It was here and now that Robert felt he was on solid ground. Your proposal has garnered positive feedback, and we're ready to allocate resources for a pilot program, the CEO announced, a satisfied glint in his eyes. Relief surged through Robert, but he also understood this was merely the beginning. The transitory phase of initial planning was fading, and now they would plunge into the complexities of execution, a demanding task that hinged upon active participation and evolving collaboration. "I appreciate your trust," Robert responded, "and I'm committed to ensuring our values underpin this initiative. Our success will hinge on open communication at every juncture. Together, we can elevate our brand and redefine what it means to be a leader in our industry." His voice echoed with a confidence he had not felt before. Suddenly, the weight of his earlier isolation had transformed into a buoyant camaraderie. Each step taken deeper into this realm, galvanizing his ambition while reaffirming his commitment to authenticity. As he left the meeting, Robert felt an overwhelming sensation of fulfillment wash over him, a clarity that had been absent before. He was no longer navigating corporate terrain shrouded in loneliness. Instead, he was part of a collective movement that sought to intertwine profitability with purpose. He glanced out the window of his office, a vibrant sun setting beyond the cityscape. The view was a physical manifestation of his journey, a blend of richness and beauty he had once been blind to. As he stepped away from corporate success's golden cage, Robert embraced the transformative power of opportunity, the kind that inspired change, reclaimed purpose, and shaped a legacy worth celebrating. In that moment of crystallized understanding, Robert knew he had conquered not only his career, but had discovered a profound truth about himself. Beyond numbers and accolades lay the essence of true fulfillment stemming from meaningful work. The work had only begun, and it was now reflected in every decision made, every challenge faced. He had embraced the essence of leadership, authenticity, resilience, and ambition, and his legacy was no longer defined by solitude, but by shared aspirations intersecting with genuine impact. Now, as the sun dipped beneath the horizon, Robert set forth anew, energized by the possibilities yet to come. He was at peace with his achievements and the path that lay ahead, his heart resolute and his purpose clear. Don't wait even one more second. You need to subscribe now to catch the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and ensure others discover this transformative journey. Your reactions and theories about the ending are important. Comment below to let us know what you think. And don't forget to share instantly with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. It's time to uplift those who want to embrace their own potential.